going on, guys? Back with part 2 of the Warrior Fury PVE guide. And we're going to be talking about some of the abilities right now. Talk about abilities that we're going to use in the rotation. We're going to talk about cooldowns, defensive cooldowns, etc. So we'll jump right into this here. In Fury here we got the Battle Shout, which is going to increase your strength and agility of all raid and party members within 45 yards by 549, and it generates you 30 rage. So it's going to give you 30 rage, and it's going to give you 549 strength, which is huge. Berserker Rage, you're going to enter a Berserker state. It's going to remove and grant you immunity to any type of fear, sap, or incap abilities that may be used by an NPC or player, depending on what you're doing. And it's also going to generate you 5 rage instantly. If you're glyphed, like I told you, it's going to give you 8 though. And it's going to cause extra rage generation when taking damage. So while you're getting hit, your rage generation is going to increase. Berserker stance, obviously, this is the stance you're in for most Fury abilities. Bloodthirst, this is what your primary attacks, and it's going to instantly attack the target, causing an increased amount of damage based on your attack power. And also, if you hit, it can proc pretty much to the point where the next 3 successful melee attacks will restore 0.6% of your max health. So you can get a little bit of self-heal out of this. More importantly, it's a pretty hard-hitting ability. Challenging Shout, I really use that often. Once in a while, like if a tank goes down and there's not a DK that can just quickly go into, blood presence, I'll pop this. But basically what this does is going to focus all enemies within 10 yards to attack me. So it's pretty much an AoE taunt. Next we have the Cleave. This is one of your AoE abilities. You're going to stack this with Whirlwind if you're in an AoEing situation, but it's a sweeping attack that strikes the target and 2 nearby allies, but if you use the glyph like I told you, you're going to get 1 more, so you can get up to 4 mobs then with that. Commanding Shout is like Battle Shout, but instead of giving yourself strength, you're going to give yourself 30 rage and stamina. I don't use this. I use Battle Shout because obviously strength is a lot higher priority for a warrior in general than stamina unless you're tanking. Next one is Death Wish, which is one of your cooldown abilities. It's got a 2.5 minute cooldown. You should be popping this whenever it's up. When you activate this, you become enraged, and as long as you're glyphed, you're not going to take that 32% damage increase to yourself. So I usually pop this right off the bat once the tank has threat, and usually 1 more time if it's a boss fight, and then a 3rd time during the burn phase. So you definitely want to keep an eye on your cooldowns. It's going to optimize your DPS if you use them when you're supposed to. Demoralizing Shout you use when let's say a tank goes down once again and it's on me. This reduces physical damage taken by 10% for 45 seconds. So this is going to help out the healers as they're focus healing me so that I don't die. And maybe we can get a battle res up on the tank. It's good to have on your bar. Enraged Regeneration, this is a self-heal, and it can only be used in an enraged state. So you can do this by hitting Berserker Rage on your own, or sometimes, you'll get an enraged state from a proc or another ability. So you definitely want to use this throughout the fight though when it does come up. It's got a 3 minute cooldown, so you can use it multiple times in a boss fight. Helps out your healers, and that's something that a lot of people don't do. They wonder why healers go out of mana. Well, it's one of the reasons is a lot of classes have self-healing abilities and they don't use them. So you're definitely going to want to pop that when you can. Next we're moving on to Execute, and basically at 20% of, or I should say remaining 20% of a mob or a boss, you go into what I call the Execute phase, and Execute becomes available. It instant procs, and what it does is it pretty much causes physical damage and consumes up to 20 additional rage to deal up to even more damage. And Execute used to be a lot better than it is currently. A lot of people, some people straight up don't use it anymore, which I disagree with, but I think you should only be spamming Execute to build up your Executioner stacks and then resume your normal rotation. So I'd probably go up to like 5 stacks and then go back into your normal rotation, which we'll go over later on. Next is Heroic Fury. It's one of those things we spec'd into to help out with it. It removes immobilization effects. It refreshes your interceptability. Heroic Leap. Pretty much this is a heroic jump. I'm sure you all know what it is. I'll show you real quick. And basically what that does is it leaps you into a situation. Um, it does some damage. I mean, it can interrupt things. I use it a lot in PvP more than PvE. If someone's trying to grab a flag or something of that nature, I'll kind of jump onto the flag, interrupt their cast. Um, this pretty much, I mean, it's useful if you're, attacking mobs on one end of an area and then you got to, get over another end of the area. You can leap over instead of running on foot. It speeds things up, but I think it's more of kind of a vanity thing than anything else. It's just kind of cool to leap around, but it only works half the time too. You can't leap upstairs or up hills, or it's kind of a pain in the ass and ends up pissing me off a lot, I think, more than anything else. Inner Rage, reduce your cooldown of Heroic Strike and Cleave by 50% for 15 seconds. It's pretty huge, but you got to be careful with this too because you don't want to run out of rage, and these abilities take a decent amount, and reducing the cooldown of them is going to take even more if you're spamming it. So definitely be careful on that. Intercept is basically like charge, but you don't get more rage when you charge or when you intercept. Um, I don't really use this in PvE. Sometimes I'll use it if, like, if I'm fighting a boss and he does like a huge knockback or something like that, and I want to get right back in, so I don't sacrifice any DPS. I'll intercept back in, but it costs 10 rage, and to me, like when in the beginning of my rotation, I'll pop, my battle shout, and then if I intercept, I just gained 30 rage initially, but now I'm using 10 of it right off the bat that could have been used for the start of my rotation to get things going. So I don't really do that. I just kind of save it for, during fight when I'm already got a lot of rage if there's a situation that calls for it. Intimidating shout is your fear, and basically you can hit up to 5 people. In PvE, this is very dangerous to use, especially in a dungeon. I've seen people pull more mobs than we can handle. The only time I use this is if, let's say, once again the tank goes down, I find myself, being a controlling situation. I might pop it so that all the mobs kind of disperse, and we can maybe get a battle res up or give the healers a chance to think and figure out what they need to do. Let me get away from this stupid ret paladin that's deciding to interrupt my video. Alright, where were we? Oh yes, pummel. Pummel is your interrupt, and as a warrior you will be expected to interrupt quite a bit. You only got a 10-second cooldown, which is a lot quicker cooldown than most classes interrupts, so they're going to turn to you. I know I hate it because it's kind of like one of those extra things you got to remember during a fight, and it's not every fight, so it's like, it's situational, but I definitely find myself interrupting in a lot of situations, over casters, which in my opinion casters should always be the interrupter, but I didn't say that. Shh. Next we have Raging Blow, which you spec into, remember, and that deals 187% weapon damage. And this comes up, at procs, or you can make it proc by hitting Berserker Rage first. It's definitely something you want to hit whenever it's up, like ASAP. It takes priority. Rallying Cry is your raid cooldown, and a lot of people don't know we have this, and it's something you want to definitely remind your raid leader that you have. Basically what it does is it grants you and all party members within 30 yards 20% maximum health for 10 seconds. However, when that 10 seconds expires, the health is lost. This is very helpful during different phases of boss fights where, maybe he's enraging, or maybe there's a part where, he's about to do, something crazy and we got to throw up some raid walls and whatnot. That's when Rallying Cry definitely comes into handy. It helps out the healers. It helps keep people up. So, definitely don't just use it when you feel you need to use it, because it should be something that's called out by the raid leader, in my opinion. I mean, if you got a bad pull right off the bat and you want to try and resurrect the pull, it would be okay to blow it early on, because it only has a 3-minute cooldown, so you'll be able to save it again for late in the fight when these other phases may occur. But, just like I said, let your raid leader know that you have it and use judgment, and you should be good. Recklessness is another one of our major cooldowns, and it grants your special attacks an additional 50% chance to crit. But on the flip side, it also increases all damage taken by 20%. You can't glyph out of this, unfortunately. It is what it is, but for the extra 50% chance to crit on special attacks, it's totally worth, taking that 20% damage. So, you know, a lot of times what I'll do too is like, just to help the healers out if they're already having a difficult time, I'll pop Berserker Rage, or if I'm already enraged, I move immediately to an enraged regeneration, and I'll start self-healing myself before I pop my macro that includes this attack. And you know, it definitely balances it out, because while my health, I may be more vulnerable and so my health might be going down, it's balancing out from the enraged regeneration, you know, because I'm self-healing. Next attack is Slam, and like I told you before, not only does it cause 167% weapon damage, but this thing has a cast bar. So unless it procs, do not hit it. It's gonna mess up your rotation. It's wasting 15 rage, because when this bitch procs, it's not costing you anything. It's an instant cast ability, and I mean, why say more? That's pretty much what it is. Now, when it does hit, like I said before, it hits like a truck. So make sure you're including this in your rotation, but only when it procs. Next is Victory Rush. That's your self-heal. So like we told you before, if you get the killing blow on a mob, you can target another mob. You'll see Victory Rush light up like a procced ability, and you just roll over, hit this, and you're going to self-heal yourself. And it's not just self-healing, but it's taking the health from the mobs. You're doing damage. I've procced well over 20k before, or I shouldn't say procced. I crit well over 20k on a Victory Rush. As I love it in PvP especially, because I've killed people with Victory Rushes. It's kind of funny. And last but not least, we got Whirlwind, and basically like Whirlwind, it's going to hit every enemy within 8 yards, causing 65% weapon damage from both weapons to each enemy. So it's pretty huge. You know, on a burn phase, or I shouldn't say a burn phase, an AoE phase where you got a lot of trash mobs or whatever. Once again, I'll use the example of the Scorpions in Firelands. I pop Whirlwind and Cleave with my macro, which I'll show you guys my macro later, and I've done retarded amounts of AoE damage. So it's definitely you can be one of the top AoEers. Really, the only class that's beat me in AoE, you know, when I was on top of my game, and so were they, was I had a rogue, believe it or not, with Fan of Knives, pull like, it was like 85, 90k one time in an AoE situation, which was pretty fucking crazy. But it does happen. Another ability we're just going to go over real quick is Heroic Strike, and this is an attack that instantly does, you know, damage, physical damage for to the mob. It's a good attack for moments of excess rage. I would not use this unless you have 90 plus rage. If you don't have 90 plus rage, don't burn this, because it's going to cost 30. So that's pretty huge. When your rage bar is full, start cracking this bitch. You know, when you just see, when you're using an ability and you see that rage bar just going back up, just throw in a Heroic Strike. It does a lot of damage. This is definitely worth having. There's no reason not to use it. Colossus Smash is another ability. This is one of your prime ones that you're going to use throughout the rotation, and basically this hits a target for 150% weapon damage and weakens their defenses, allowing your attacks to entirely bypass 100% of their armor for 6 seconds. This is huge. In PvE, it does 100%. In PvP, it does 50% of the bypass of armor. But it's pretty fucking nuts, because if you can hit this, you're bypassing their armor for 6 seconds. So you pop this, and then you crack them with like a Heroic Strike, you're doing a lot of damage. And so you definitely want to get Colossus Smash up as soon as possible, but more importantly, you want to get another attack right after that Colossus Smash as soon as possible, so you can take advantage of that 100% armor bypass. I would more or less loop Heroic Strike, like I said, with it. I think it has the best ability to, you know, infiltrate that situation and cause you the best type of damage. But you know, like I said, I mean, it's pretty much the only other ability I have on my bar from another tree is from the protection tree, which is Taunt. And the reason why I have this on my bar is you never know as a warrior when you're going to be in a situation where a tank goes down and you're expected to keep the rate up. So, you know, tank goes down, you know, you might have to hurry up, hop in defensive stance, and pop Taunt. And doing this, you know, you can get the boss on you for a moment, have the healers focus on you while they try and get the tank up and rebuffed, and then he can take it back over. Just remember to hop back into Berserker stance, and you should be good to go. Alright guys, well that concludes my area of explaining the abilities. Next, we are going to talk about the actual rotation itself, so stay tuned.